بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, we were discussing the ahkam related to Hajj, and we were discussing a walkthrough step by step of every single day of Hajj. We finished the 8th, we finished the 9th, we finished the 10th, and we technically finished the 11th as well. And inshallah, now we'll start the 12th of the Hajj, inshallah. Okay, so it says, فإذا كان من الغد رمى الجمار الثلاث بعد زوال الشمس كذلك وإن أراد أن يتعجل النفر نفر إلى مكة. Okay. Now, the 12th, 11th and 12th, the only things that you need to do on those days is Rami of the Jamarat, right? And if you have not finished Tawaf Ziyarah, you should do Tawaf Ziyarah, right? Now, what does that mean? So, essentially, let's just take a step back, right? So, 9th, you're in Arafah, right? 9th, just quickly we'll walk through it. 9th, you're in Arafah, from Dhuhr till sunset. After sunset, you leave Arafah and you go to Muzdalifah. You pray Maghrib and Isha there together, and you spend the night in Muzdalifah. After that, you pray Fajr at the earliest time possible. You go to the Jamarat. You pelt the biggest shaitan, and then you leave. Right? That's the 10th. Right? 10th, you pelt the biggest shaitan. You leave, and you go back to your tents in Mina. You wait there. Once the notification is given that the animal is sacrificed, after that you can then shave or trim your head. Okay? And then you'll be out of the state of ihram. Everything is halal for you except women. And then that day of 10th, you're pretty much done. You can do tawaf ziyarah from anywhere from the 10th till the 12th Maghrib, right? So you have that time, 10th, 11th, and 12th Maghrib, you must do Tawaf Ziyarah. No, this is the second fard. The first fard of Hajj is Arafah. The second fard of Hajj is doing that Tawaf Ziyarah, along with Sa'i. Right? So at any time, 10, 11, and 12. So my recommendation is not to go on the 10th, but my recommendation is to go maybe, so 10th, you're already in Mina after you cut your hair and you're still in Mina. My recommendation is relax there. On the 11th, you go do Rami of Jamarat and come back, spend the day in Ibadah and worshiping Allah Ta'ala so you're going to go for Rami on the 11th. You're supposed to go after Zawal, after the time of Dhuhr, right? Now, 11th and 12th, my recommendation is not to go after Zawal. So before Zawal, before Dhuhr, it is not permissible according to the vast majority of scholars. After Zawal, that's the recommended time to go, from between Zawal and Maghrib. That's between Zawal means the sun declining from the zenith, so meaning Dhuhr time. Dhuhr till Maghrib, that's the time that you're supposed to go. But it's extremely hot right now, 120, 130 degrees, right? So therefore, my recommendation is to go after Maghrib. After Maghrib, it's makruh to go. It's makruh to go after Maghrib, but for the sake of your safety, I would say it's better to go after Maghrib, so that you're healthy and you're safe, inshallah. See, the Saudi, sometimes even in the nusuk, you'll receive like a message that says, you know what, due to the heat wave and so on, the scholars have recommended, have allowed you to go to do Rami of the Jamarat before Zawal. So based on that need, they say you can go before Zawal. Now again, the vast majority of scholars say it is not permissible to go and do Rami at that time. Whereas after Maghrib, it's only makruh. When I say only, I mean in comparison to the impermissibility, it's only makruh, right? So therefore, my recommendation is to go for Rami after Maghrib, okay? And so, because I'll tell you, this is what we did. Last year, we did the 10th, we did in the morning, right? 11th, we went at 4 p.m. And when I tell you that some people from our community, or some people from our group almost died, that was genuinely the case, unfortunately. Some people almost died. There were some members of our community who were flat out on the ground laying there, right? So it is a very difficult journey, and it's not easy. So therefore, I recommend, so then that's what we did. That the 11th, we went at 4 p.m. and we got back after Maghrib, right? It took like 6 hours, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I think we missed Isha that day also, meaning Isha Jama'ah in Haram, right? And so I was so upset with the brother that took us because it was like, you don't understand the stampede of people that are there. It's insane, right? You cannot move. It's burning hot. Like the sun is still like relatively very high in the sky. 4 p.m. Sunset like maybe 6 p.m. Let's say something like that, right? So it's still very hot at that time. Um, so the next day I said, we will not do this because that was not my suggestion. It was somebody else, one of the other leaders. He wanted to go at that time. I said, don't do this. He said, no, I want to go at that time. I said, okay, fine. But then unfortunately we all, suffered because of that. So the next day I said, you will follow me. And then we went after Maghrib. We left after Maghrib technically it was 12th to leading into the 13th night. So it is makruh. It is makruh to do it, but we still did jamarat at that time because of the heat, and it was very comfortable. Now, if we had stayed till Fajr, then it would be wajib for us to do the 13th as well. If you stay till Fajr, then it's wajib for you to pelt on the 13th as well. But if you leave Mina, you leave the jamarat area before Fajr, then you don't have to do 13th as well, which we'll talk about right now. Okay, so he says that if you want to hasten and go back to Makkah after 12, you can go back to Makkah, no problem. Up until that point, it's sunnah to stay the nights in Mina. If there's a genuine excuse, if let's say, you're someone who has a lot of difficulty sleeping in that area, then you can go sleep in your hotels. That's not a big deal. That's okay. But just be careful. Make sure you're able to go back to your hotels comfortably. Otherwise, some people, they get ripped off. Trying to go back to their hotels, the taxi drivers, sometimes they rip them off. Just be careful. It's okay. Like I said, what I said, my advice was previously, is that just in terms of American numbers, only be willing to pay around 20, 25 bucks, right? Per trip. Anything above 20, 25, which is 100 riyals, right? Anything above 100 riyals, you should not even consider, right? Sometimes people feel desperate and they're like, I need to go. So then they just grab the first taxi, and the taxi driver, he sees desperation and he says, $1,000. No, it's happened. Literally this past, someone had paid $1,000, not 1,000 riyals, $1,000 for a few miles. Absolutely insane, right? Now, again, had he, just calmed down and just asked a couple of taxi drivers, he could have gotten it for, maybe a couple hundred riyals, right? At most. So my recommendation is maximum you should be willing to pay generally is about $20, $25, which is about 100 riyals, right? That's above average. That's above normal, right? So you're paying American prices essentially, but that's okay. During the days of Hajj, it's a busy season, so it's okay. But nothing like, you should not be paying 500,000 riyals even. Forget $1,000. Forget $500. You should not be paying that much unless it's like life or death, Anyways, moving on. So وَإِنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يُقِيمْ, if he wants to stay, meaning stay the night of the 13th and until Fajr, رمى الجمار الثلاثة في اليوم الرابع بعد زوال الشمس كذلك. Right? فإن قدم الرمي في هذا اليوم قبل الزوال بعد طلوع الفجر جاز عند أبي حنيفة رحمه الله. So on the 13th, you can do Rami of the Jamarat. According to the more correct opinion, you can do it after Fajr time ends, right? After Fajr time begins, I'm sorry. After Fajr time begins, then you can do Rami of the Jamarat all the way until the time of Dhuhr, right? You have from that time all the way until the Zawal al-Shams. So this is the time that's permitted, meaning you have until sunset. Technically, you have until sunset, right? I mean, it's still permissible until sunset, but you are also permitted to do before Zawal, which is after the time of Fajr begins. So you have the time, technically you have the entire day from Fajr all the way till sunset, essentially, if you want to do on the 13th as well. Okay. Whereas 10 and 11, 12, 11 and 12, you cannot do between Fajr and Zawal. On the 13th, you can do at that time. Right? And also on the 10th as well, you can do at that time as well. So hopefully this kind of like, I know it's kind of a confusing, but hopefully it makes sense. Any questions? Okay. فإن قدم الرمي في هذا اليوم قبل okay, we did that part. ويكره أن يقدم الإنسان ثقله إلى مكة ويقيم بها حتى يرمي. Okay. فإذا نفر إلى مكة نزل بالمحصب ثم طاف بالبيت 7 أشواط. Then once you come to Makkah, now you're back in Makkah, you must do tawaf. This is the last thing that you must do. This is known as tawaf al-wida'. This is wajib. And this is just tawaf. You just do tawaf. So you're in normal clothes, regular clothes after, and this is before you leave. Anytime before you leave, you should just go do one tawaf. So you'll do tawaf. You will not do ramal, meaning you will not expose your right arm and you will not run a bit faster. You will not do sa'i. There's no sa'i after that also, meaning between Safa and Marwa. And this is called طواف الوداع. وهذا طواف الصدر وهو واجب إلا على أهل مكة. Only the people of Makkah, it's not wajib on them, but for everyone else, it's wajib for them to do this. ثم يعود إلى أهلي, then you go back to your family. Okay, so this is essentially a step-by-step for the individual Hajj. Meaning when you're only doing Hajj. We're going to talk about the other types of Hajj as well, but I'm going to go through them much quicker because it's fairly the same thing, right? But there's a couple of lines left to end the chapter, so let's try to finish the chapter first before we open up for any Q&A. فإن لم يدخل المحرم مكة وتوجه إلى عرفات ووقف بها على ما قدمناه سقط عنه طواف القدوم ولا شيء عليه لتركه. Okay, he gets into like, okay, if you come to Makkah, but you just go directly to Arafah on the 9th, essentially. You land, you come, and you go directly on the 9th. Technically, that's okay. Right? Because the Tawaf al-Qudum, the first Tawaf that I mentioned in the first one, that's Sunnah. If you miss it, you miss on Sunnah, but you don't have to give anything. ومن أدرك الوقوف بعرفة ما بين زوال الشمس من يوم عرفة إلى طلوع الفجر من يوم النحر فقد أدرك الحج. Right? The one who finds Arafah, who comes to Arafah on the 9th, after Zawal al-Shams on the 9th until Fajr the next day, then he has completed Hajj. Okay? That's how important Arafah is, right? Any time between the time of Dhuhr on the 9th and Fajr on the 10th. So technically, Fajr you're supposed to be where? Where are you supposed to be for Fajr on the 10th? Muzdalifah. You're supposed to be Muzdalifah, but essentially all of that time, technically you have to be in Arafah. So if you're in Arafah for a moment at that time, your Hajj is complete. As I said, I mentioned this before as well. There were some people last year who they were ambulanced into Arafah because from our group, they were ambulanced into Arafah. They were elderly. That's why I don't recommend anyone going for Hajj alone. I don't recommend it simply because, yeah.
That question that I have is because like now people will think that I have only $10,000 and I have to take two people, so now it has to be $20,000. So I mean,
Yeah,
what I'm saying is,
yeah, I know. Some people they're like, okay, I can't pay for two people or something, or like, and so then they just want to go by themselves, for example, right? I understand. It's more expensive. If anything, if for example, let's say you don't have, let's say your wife already did Hajj, for example. Let's say your children already did Hajj, for example. In that case, I recommend finding a friend who did not do Hajj. You need to go for Hajj together. Go for Hajj together. Yeah. But just have someone that you're close with that you can go for Hajj together and you can like help one another. Otherwise, anything can happen. So although nowadays, alhamdulillah, it's much easier than it was 100 years ago, for example, but even then, you never know, and it's good to have help and support system. Okay, so that entire time you must be in Arafah at least for a little bit. ومن اجتاز بعرفة وهو نائم أو مغمى عليه أو لم يعلم أنها عرفات أجزأه ذلك عن الوقوف. Someone who comes to Arafah while he's sleeping or he's unconscious or he doesn't even know he's in Arafat, that's still okay. Technically, this suffices on behalf of the wuquf because the idea is you must be there, that's it. Whether you're conscious or not. Okay. Any questions before we end off the chapter? There's a little left regarding women. Yes. So you will take your ihram off on the 10th after you do Rami after you do Rami, you will go and you'll wait in Mina. They will announce that, listen, your animal has been sacrificed. Because generally, this is how it generally is, right? Your animal has been sacrificed. So then you go shave your head or trim your hair. And after that, you can now come out of the clothes of ihram. But everything is halal for you except for your wife. Your wife will be halal for you after you do tawaf ziyarah. Right? Meaning after the 10th, between the 10th and the 12th, that tawaf that I mentioned, for your wife to be halal for you, for everything to be halal, you must go and do that tawaf. That's the second fard of Hajj. So technically you come out of the clothes of ihram and everything else on the 10th, once you do the Rami of the Jamara. Any other questions? Okay. Now, وَالْمَرْأَةُ فِي جَمِيعِ ذَلِكَ الرَّجُلُ. A woman will, in all of these situations, will be just like a man. غَيْرَ أَنَّهَا لَا تَكْشِفُ رَأْسَهَا. Except that the woman shall not expose her head. وَتَكْشِفُ وَجْهَها. And she must expose her face. وَلَا تَرْفَعُ صَوْتَهَا بِالتَّلْبِيَةِ. She will not say the talbiyah loudly. وَلَا تَرْمُلُ فِي الطَّوَافِ. She will not do ramal in tawaf. Meaning which is that, exposing her right arm or running a bit in tawaf. She will not do ramal, right? وَلَا تَسْعَى بَيْنَ الْمِيلَيْنِ الْأَخْضَرَيْنِ. She will not run between the green or, the lights where that area. That valley, she will not run in that area as well. وَلَا تَحْلِقُ. She will not shave. وَلَكِنْ تُقَصِّرُ. She will trim her hair. Okay. So all of these things, woman would be similar to a man except in these couple of things. As for exposing the face, our scholars, we say that even in this case, she should still try to cover her face in some way or the other, right? Because unfortunately, there's still people who, one of the most common advices that I got from my teachers when I was going for Hajj is that lower your gaze. That's one of the most common advices that you get, that my teachers gave me as well. That when you go for Hajj, lower your gaze, because there's so many women who, they're exposing their face, for example, and then they're a source of attraction, and women are naturally beautiful, right? So therefore, it's a source of, fitna for us. So therefore, the scholars, they say that even now, women should try to cover their face in a way that does not touch their face. So for example, they can either wear a cap and then the niqab kind of like drapes over their face without touching their face. Or for example, because Hajj, obviously you're wearing ihram for longer periods. If a woman does decide to wear like a mask or something, or she decides to wear like some covering of her face, in that case, if it's anything less than 12 hours in a day, then she has to give sadaqah. But if she's wearing it for more than 12 hours consecutively, then she has to give dam. So therefore, if she wants to do it, maybe she can, just cover her face when she's in public in the congested areas, and then for like 1 or 2 hours, and then give 15 riyals, which is like $4 or $5 in sadaqah, and then that suffices, Yes.
What was happening before the time of Prophet?
So in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, of course, this was, yes, women, as I said, women are supposed to expose their face, right? That's a requirement of ihram, that they must expose their face. But at the same time, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and in that time, the people's hearts were cleaner, and so they weren't spending time looking at women. You know what I mean? Whereas nowadays, unfortunately, we are weaker, and our iman is weaker, right? And so therefore, unfortunately, we get distracted very easily. And so therefore, yes, ideally, a woman would just, not cover her face, and men would be, in an ideal world, a woman would just not cover her face, and she would walk, she would do whatever she wants, and men would not look at her. But is that happening? No, it's not happening. So because of that, we recommend that women take extra precaution and then try to do that if you can, inshallah, just to save yourself from people staring at you and so on, women. So that's my recommendation.
Medical masks allowed?
Yeah, so as I said, right, like if someone does wear like a medical mask or something like that, then if it's less than 12 hours, then it's makruh, but I mean, it's impermissible, but they just have to give sadaqah, right? Sadaqah, which is about 15 riyals, like $4 or $5, and you can give it to any poor person in the Haramain, and that suffices, right? Sorry?
Even the men?
Even the men. So let's say I decide to cover my face, wear a mask. In that case, I would need to give sadaqah. Anything less than 12 hours. But if I'm wearing it for consecutively more than 12 hours, then I have to give dam, which is like a sacrificial animal. Right? It's bigger. But generally, most people are not wearing it 12 hours. You wear it for like, an hour, 2 hours maximum when there's like a congested area. I recommend that, right? So those are just some ways.
So supplementary question, like back in 2019, when we were doing it, we were just going into the COVID time, right? It was recommended from the administration and everyone to wear those medical masks. So even that, in that case, I used to do sadaqah or just,
Yes. So even if it's a recommendation from the CDC or, or whichever type of disease control, it's still a recommendation, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you're still covering your face, whereas this is part of ihram. Do not cover your face. So therefore, you would need to give sadaqah. Sadaqah is only 15 riyals, so it's not a big deal. Ideally in Haramain. Ideally in the boundaries of the Haramain.
What if you realize afterwards?
So many people are going. You just give your sadaqah to somebody and say, hey, listen, can you distribute this on my behalf? Fine. 15 riyals is sadaqah, yes. About. Some say it's a bit less, but I would say 15 is fine. Some say 12, 13. It's not a big deal. 12, 13 riyals, 15 riyals. Just give 15. It's just to be safer. Okay. Any other questions?
The Umrah is the same.
Umrah is technically the same, yes. The rules are similar, yes. For ihram, yes.
So in 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th, the recommended times for the Jamrat is on
So-
first day it is after Fajr.
For 10th, yes, after Fajr. For 11th and 12th, it's after Dhuhr till sunset, Maghrib. And 13th from Fajr till Maghrib. Okay. But as I said, I recommend going later in the evening for 11 and 12 so that you can make it back before it's very congested. Okay. We're going to stop here, inshallah. We will do Hajj Quran and Tamattu', inshallah. After Hajj, inshallah, we'll continue, after Ramadan, sorry. We'll continue on as we are, alhamdulillah. We're just moving through the book, alhamdulillah. Inshallah, there's about 3 months left for Hajj. And so obviously those who are interested in going for Hajj, you have to make your decision within this week. This week is probably the last week for Nusuk. And so if you're going to go for Hajj through Nusuk, then you should decide immediately. And inshallah, you can either go with us or you can go with anybody, whoever you like, inshallah. But if you do want to go this year, you should make that intention immediately. And, ask Allah. If you have not gone for Hajj, ask Allah Ta'ala to take you for Hajj. And if you have gone for Hajj, ask Allah Ta'ala to take you again and again and again. And ask Allah Ta'ala for acceptance of your Hajj. The Hajj that you went on, ask Allah Ta'ala for acceptance for that Hajj. Allah Ta'ala give me first. May Allah grant us all tawfiq to understand and practice. We'll stop and obviously we'll take a break for Ramadan, inshallah. I will do fiqh of zakat, inshallah, Friday night, inshallah. Friday night, this upcoming Friday night, likely we'll be waiting for the announcement for the moon sighting. So while we wait, inshallah, at Arkola, while we wait, inshallah, after Maghrib, I will do the fiqh of zakat presentation, inshallah. Okay? Assalamu alaikum.